Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. Today we've got a special guest from Northern Alberta, and people that follow social media, specifically Instagram, might have seen her before. She's very active in the outdoors. It looks like it's a real passion of hers. Jenn Simpkins, welcome to Harvest Your Own.
Well, thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah. We've never met in person. I think we know each other more by what our posts are on social media than anything. But
yeah, absolutely.
But it looks like you lead a very interesting lifestyle.
Well, I try and get out there and do stuff, try and get the adventures and the learning experiences.
Yeah. And
live life.
Yeah. And I'd say you actually do it. Lots of people think about it or dream about it, but they actually never get down to planning it and making it happen.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing is making stuff happen, especially in the world nowadays. It's hard to make time for things, but you got to make time for the important things. So.
Absolutely. I say that all the time when I, years ago, it seemed like I could get out ice fishing every weekend and hunting every weekend and lots of days during the week. And man, unless I mark it on my calendar these days, it's hard to find the time or make the time to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to schedule it in, but if it's important to you, right, you'll get out there and do it.
Yeah, I think I could speak for both of us when I say, when you make the time to go do it, it improves the quality of life overall.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely improves everything. Makes you happier anyways.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Jenn Simpkins.
Well, I grew up in Northern Alberta, just around Bellevue area. And my family, like my dad's side, all hunts. And, that's what we grew up. We grew up out at a hunting camp and like to do the outdoor lifestyle. And that about sums me up.
Well, it sums it up. But, I mean, hunting camp left a big impression on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've been going out there for quite a few years. I know my dad started going out there when he was younger. So a lot of years they've been out there at our hunting camp. So yeah.
And when you first started going, you weren't hunting, you weren't old enough, but you were in hunting camp and loved every minute of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just so nice to get out there. Even you don't realize it when you're younger, but you definitely appreciate it more when you're older.
Yeah. So the people that were in camp, your dad and friends, they took the time to include you, which doesn't always happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely, I was lucky that way. My dad's a really good family friend, was a guide, and he got me hooked on my first elk hunt. So, yeah.
What is it about your early years that you remember most?
Probably just sitting around the campfire, I guess, when everybody was done hunting and the stories they would come back with and stuff the most part.
Yeah. Did they tell the same ones every year, or was it more about what happened on that specific trip?
Usually that specific trip, or, sometimes you would go back into remember when we did this or this happened, and yeah.
The fun stories.
And even, hunting stories. And then even like when we do some day trips or drive around our different lines we have, remember when so-and-so got their moose here or so-and-so got their elk here, right? Yeah.
And being part of hunting.
So a lot of memories.
Yeah, hunting camp, it's a wall tent camp, is it?
Yeah, we have a wall tent set up on a false floor, and we got a lot of stuff set up out there, like a picnic table and everything. It's comfy enough. Yeah. It's
comfy enough, but it's still rustic.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have like a diesel stove in the tent, so it definitely gets a little warm in there. I remember we used to have a wood stove, and I remember the person with the lightest sleeping bag usually had to stoke it because they were the ones that were cold.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wall tents make a great camp. They're there's something about it. I don't know if it's the smell of the canvas or just being able to hear everything outdoors when you're trying to go to sleep or what it is, but it makes for a very special experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, you just get out there and then there's nothing else out there, right?
So your early experiences, you weren't just in camp, you went along on the hunts as well?
I didn't really start going on hunts until probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we would chicken hunt and stuff, but now that was when I first went for my first hunt actually with Ed, our family friend. So
right. That's when you were licensed and you could hunt on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you went along as a kid, did you actually go along on the hunts every morning? You get up, or did you stay in camp?
No, I would just stay in camp usually. Okay. Yeah.
So that's why the tall tales at night around the fire were so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what motivated you to start 10 years ago?
You know what? Everybody's stories were just so interesting, like the adventures and stuff. And once I did actually get to go out and I got to enjoy it, you know, the walking and the calling and the different things you learn and stuff like that. It was just, I wanted to do it again.
Yeah, it's very addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is.
What was the first thing that you actually hunted for?
For me, the first thing that I actually went for was my moose. I had my moose draw.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Tell us a little bit about your hunt.
Well, just walking around, you know, trying to call some moose in.
So it was early season? You did September or October?
Yeah, early season. But no, like we didn't really, I know we got a chance once. We were actually just clearing a line. We weren't actually hunting. We were clearing a line and a moose came in, but I didn't actually get a shot at him because I couldn't see him because I'm so short. And the joke of everything is I'm so short and the underbrush is tall that it's very hard for me to hunt. So everybody else could see the moose and I couldn't. So, and then he finally caught our scent and he ran away.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard lots of stories about moose coming to train whistles and chainsaw noises and different things. And it sounds like that's what you experienced. Yeah,
absolutely. And I knew I heard something and I told them to turn the chainsaw off. And they're like, no, you didn't hear anything. But then, yeah, the moose started to grunt more and they're like, oh, yeah, there's a moose. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty special.
That was, yeah, for sure. And then I know I tried, but I never actually got one in until our last trip out to hunting camp. Actually, we were just headed into, you know, the last hunting weekend and take camp out. And into camp, we were headed in, and just before we crossed the river, you could see across, and there was an actual bull moose there with two calves. So it was really awesome. So we stopped everything, and I jumped out, and I got him in my sights, and yeah, I took the shot. So.
Excellent. What do you remember most? Was it easy to tell it was a bull?
No, not really, actually, because they were all together and they were a little farther away. And I know my dad was joking on the way in, get your gun out, you never know. And I'm like, oh, no, we'll be fine. We won't see anything. So, and he's like, well, there's a moose. And I'm like, you think that's a moose? And yeah, it was. It was three of them.
Great. So one shot?
Yeah, one shot and long shot. It was about, I want to say 150 yards about. But.
Excellent. Obviously, you'd done some practicing.
Yeah, I practiced a few times before that. You always got to practice because you just never know, right?
Right. I guess that's one of the benefits of living in the country is that you could probably go onto your land in the backyard and do some shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. You can just go out back and take some shots in and know you're sighted in for what you need to be.
Yeah. So when you shot,
and then you have more faith.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it builds confidence. It's a big part of hunting is getting out and preparing for it mentally and physically, and to know your limitations. I always say never shoot further than what you've practiced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So when you shot the moose, how much work was it?
Actually, he was just right on the gravel of the riverbank, so it wasn't actually that much work. I had a few people with me. My dad, I think, my dad, Ed, and my cousin was with us. So there's quite a few of us actually going in.
Yeah, I would imagine they were all pretty excited for you.
Oh, they were very excited. Yeah.
So
it was a good.
You were probably the one telling stories around the fire that night when you got to camp finally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got it all cleaned up, and then we took it into camp for the night, and it was a very cold night that night, actually. I know going in it wasn't very cold, but I think it got to like minus 20, 25 that night. It was pretty chilly.
That is cold. Yeah, well, it makes for easy meat care, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
Now, did you grow up eating wild game?
Yep, definitely.
So it's
always had it around.
Yeah, big part of the family, the hunting trips annually, and of course it gets utilized. And is it a family favorite to have moose or elk or deer and stuff like that in the freezer?
Yeah, absolutely. Moose and elk are definitely always in the freezer. Nice to have.
Yes. Yeah, it used to be easier when you could get a moose tag every year or every second year, but I guess if you've got lots of people in the family that hunt, you can hopefully get on a rotation where you can have it on a regular basis.
Yeah, absolutely. We do mostly rotate, so that's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you don't get your moose draw, we always try for elk too. So.
Right. And that's your new favorite, is it not?
Yeah, well, elk hunting is definitely a favorite so far.
What is it that appeals to you so much?
I think it's just the calling in and just the excitement of it.
Yeah, being able to talk to something like an animal changes the game entirely, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know you can call in moose, but they don't get as excited as the elk do.
Yeah.
At least not to me anyway.
Yeah. I often say moose hunting is hours or days of boredom followed by seconds of excitement and hours of work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because moose they take so long to come in, right?
So they really do. They can take days. You know, if a bull's tied up with a cow, they might not show up until they've bred that cow, and it could be a day or two away. So you just never know.
That's right. Yeah.
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 What was one of your best experiences elk hunting?
Oh my goodness. I've had a lot of experiences elk hunting, but I think, my favorite probably was, I think it was either last year or the year before when I started my bow hunting.
Yep.
And, everybody kept telling me you have to have a person with you to call because you need it so close for your range. So usually I would try and convince my brother to come out with me, but, I decided to stay in camp for the night and everybody laughed. So I was like, well, I'm going to go out in the morning and, help's just a phone call away usually. So I went out down one of my lines and, I got out of the Argo and I got all ready and I walked a couple yards in and then I gave a bugle and you wait and then you just hear one off in the distance. So you're like, oh, well, we're going that way. So I started going that way and I was calling them back and forth. And I finally kind of could hear him like he was really close. So I thought, oh, well, I'll hang out here. There was a fallen tree and I could see a cow elk. So I was like, well, the bull's got to be around there. Like you could hear him. He was screaming pretty good. And I've never been like that much of in range with a screaming elk before. Like we've had them close, but he was really close. So I decided, I was like, well, I'm just going to bunk down here and see how close I can get him. But he was pushing a cow elk towards me. So I was like, oh, well, just bunk down a little, wait a little bit, see if he'll walk by. And he was within like 20 yards and he was there and you could see his breath and there's some twigs in my way. So I couldn't just take a shot or stand up because he'd probably see me. And he kept pushing his cow elk towards me and she came like right beside me within 5 yards and she seen me and scented me. And
yep.
Of course she took off and then she took him with her. And I was just like, that was just awesome just for the experience alone.
It's interesting when you get them at 5 or 10 yards and they bugle. I swear you can hear it right inside of you. Like you could
feel the reverberations
coming off the inside of your chest.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course I'm alone and I'm like, nobody's going to believe me. Like I was so close.
Yeah, I think that's,
But,
I went through a number of years, and I have to say I'm still in that stage where elk is one of my absolute favorites because of the interaction and, being able to just get on a game trail and go. It's
yeah,
it's a little
absolutely.
bit different than hunting the forest edge or on the lines. Elk seem to know where they're safe, and they like the seclusion, and you have to think like an elk and get right in there after them.
Yeah, they definitely make you work for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that sounded like a great experience. I've been there too. Lots of times you call them in and they like to live in that thick stuff. And I've probably had more occasions where I couldn't get a shot than when I actually could get a shot. So
Yeah, and that's what I hear about archery hunting is a lot of it. It's really hard to get a good shot, a good clean shot with your bow, right? So
yeah, but you're better off not to take one than to take a bad shot, as as an archer. It doesn't take much to deflect an arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's the things you learn when you first start. You look into it and you get all the advice, you try and get all the advice, and then it's up to you in the end if you're taking that shot.
Yeah. So it's interesting that your elk hunting extended with a bow. You must have started with a rifle.
Yeah, I did actually start with a rifle. And even a rifle is challenging for me because, like I say, sometimes the underbrush is pretty thick and I'm pretty short. But I decided to just dive into the archery world. And it's been challenging and frustrating, but I love it. It's great.
Yeah. What made you take up archery?
I just thought it would be a good experience. I didn't really know a lot of people that do archery, and I was like, well, I think I'd like to give that a try.
So where did you go to find equipment or advice and get set up for your first, to try to shoot the bow? Yeah,
so I went to Bullets and Broadheads in Grand Prairie, and I talked to the owner, and I was like, I'm going to try archery. So let's set me up and let's get me something. I didn't want to go top of the line because if I didn't know if I would like it or if I could do it. So we set me up and he gave me some lessons and sent me home, and I went home and I started practicing.
That's pretty awesome. I tell a lot of people, if you want to get equipment and try it, that's the best way to do it. Don't buy it online necessarily unless you got someone to help set it up. But if you go into a shop and they know what they're doing, they'll give you great advice. They'll help you set it up. They'll give you the lessons to get started. Make sure the bow's tuned, everything's well balanced and matched up. And it certainly helps as a starting point, because when you shoot and see that you can actually have success right away, it's rather addicting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the best thing I did was go in and get set up and do some lessons and, hit the target and actually hit, a pretty good target. So yeah, it definitely boosts your confidence. And then you go from there, right? You start talking to people more and I went on Instagram. I have friends that bow hunt and that I'm asking questions now that I probably never would have started talking to if I didn't get into archery.
Right.
And I met a few really good people online, and if I have questions, I send them, and then you just kind of got to, if it works for you, that's awesome. If it doesn't, move on, right?
Yeah. We're lucky in Alberta. We have a pretty friendly hunting community overall. I mean, there's social media sites where they can be a little bit of a little hard on people and stuff, but you reach out, most people will help you if you have questions. So it's good to hear that you've got a community within social media, because you're somewhat isolated where you live, and got the help in town, and you can follow up with it later.
Yeah, absolutely, which is really nice. Just being able to take your bow in and get it tuned and make sure everything's good to go. Because sometimes you lose the confidence when you're practicing. You're like, oh, you don't hit the target right, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? It's nice to take it in and be like, so is it the bow or is it me, or
Yeah, we all know the answer to that. 9 out of 10 times it's the person, right? You have a different anchor point or drew different, or you're doing something, but it's pretty easy to get back on track if you practice regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing with archery is you have to practice. It's not like rifle. You're sighted in, you're good to go. It's, the muscle memory for the archery and everything above that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that once you get into archery, though, we have a range set up in the backyard and the whole family goes down to shoot. It's a lot of fun. Like it's also an activity that isn't just hunting season. We find ourselves doing it throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to meet a really good friend on Instagram 2 years ago, Erica, and she's into bow hunting really big. And so we go practice, and it's more fun with somebody with you that, is into the same hobbies.
Yeah, it does help, when you're having one of those off days for someone to say, well, I think your anchor point's different or you're torquing your hand a little bit on release. It's good to have some feedback and somebody that's there to watch you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to have fun with it, right?
Absolutely. It's got to be fun. That's why we want to do it every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So do you have a range?
Little friendly competition?
Yeah, there's always that too. Yeah. Do you have a range set up at home, targets or 3D? What do you use?
Right now I have a bulldog target that I just drag out whenever I practice.
Yep.
But Grand Prairie actually has an outdoor range set up. Usually you can go over there and
that's
they
nice
have all
range.
the 3D targets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's nice.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn the anatomy of the animal and to find aiming points and stuff, to understand angles and all the rest of it. Adding a 3D decoy is actually an important exercise.
Yeah, you don't really realize the different points on animals. Like this year when I went bow hunting for my bear, I had, I needed the extra help because I was like, well, where do you shoot it if it's, if it's standing this way or if it's this way or, what if it's in this position? So, because you don't really realize things move, right? When they're standing or sitting or whatever they're doing. So,
absolutely.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information to gain insight and knowledge. Head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
I find it interesting. You started off as a rifle hunter. The rest of your family is all firearm. I'd say it's a firearm preference, right?
Yeah, but, absolutely.
You were the first one to get into archery.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my brother wanted to get into it as well, and I just beat him to it. I was like, I'm just going to do it. Who knows, right? So he did pick up a bow the last 2 years, and now he'll actually come with me, and we'll both have bows. So
good. It's
actually a really, really nice thing to have between siblings.
Yeah, I noticed you're really focused on the archery side of it, though. Like your deer hunt last year, your post was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to get one with my bow. I'm going to sit. And, the weather's cold and all the rest of it. And you could have had a rifle, but you just stuck with your archery gear.
Yeah, absolutely. I could have had him with a rifle last season, but I decided that I would really like to get one with my bow. I think it would just be more rewarding for me.
Yeah.
So, and I think this year I'm going to definitely just try for bow.
Stick with it. But you had some close encounters and you spent a lot of days out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually froze my butt off the one day and I was like, why am I freezing just sitting here? But in the end, it's just worth it.
Yeah.
You get warmer clothes for next season and you get a different setup and you learn, right?
Yeah, that's, every time you go out, you learn something.
Yeah. And it just sets you up for more success the next year. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's good. It's good that it's become such a passion because most of the time people sort of slowly get into the archery and they put the bow down as soon as the firearm season opens up. And it sounds like you've sort of jumped in with both feet and love it. And it's more of a challenge. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. I know last season I did take my rifle with my bow elk hunting because, the bush is just so thick sometimes,
Yep.
And I really wanted to pull one out of camp because I haven't actually got one at camp yet. So I would have used rifle if I had to, for sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's that want for an elk as well. I know if you haven't shot one yet and you've hunted them hard, there's a pretty strong desire. I hunted a lot of years before I shot my first one, and boy, it was sweet when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I did actually get my elk with rifle in 2022.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And, but now it's just, I'm trying really hard with the bow and just go from there. Except for a camp, I'm like, I will definitely rifle probably in rifle season later on.
Right. It's nice to have the option.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody really tells you when you first start out with archery about carrying them around or, like the little stuff, because it's a little different carrying a bow around in the bush. You don't really realize, a rifle just sits on your shoulder and it's not, it's there, but it's not as bad as or big as a bow, I guess.
Yeah, not as cumbersome, and you can get stuff caught up under your string and in your sights, and there's a lot of things that can happen that you always have to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So just little things you don't really realize, right?
Right. But you did find success with your bow finally this year. You and your friend decided you were going to hunt bears?
Yes, absolutely. I finally got success. My friend actually, she does bear baiting every year, and I wasn't really I didn't really know about the bear baiting because I didn't look into it, and I was just like, it's just baiting bears sitting in a tree stand. I didn't really understand all of it, and so we started hanging out, and she brought me to her bear bait, and I actually got really interested in it because I was like, you get to see all the different bears, how they interact, and the different personalities, and it's just a whole different world.
It really is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this year I got the opportunity. She said if I wanted to take a bear, that she would help me. So I was like, absolutely, we're going to go try for a bear.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I know the first weekend we went out, we sat quite long hours, and it wasn't as busy as we wanted to be, or there wasn't, the bears we wanted, because we're pretty fussy with selection. But there was one bear that we decided would be a good bear, especially for bow. A big bear would be nice with a bow, but a decent bear would be even okay too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So we finally, I think it was my last evening, that one of the big black bears came in, black face, and we kind of watched him go around the barrels, and Erica knows way more about it. So she's telling me how to judge a bear, on size and stuff. And so we decided, okay, well, that one would be a very nice bear. So I stood up, and he was very busy with breeding season. And I stood there and I drew my bow, and he was just so busy running around, and I had to release my bow, and then I had to redraw, and I just could not get a shot off. He was just so busy. So I left that night very disappointed. But I was like, oh, well, we'll go back. It's not, it's not the end of the season yet. So the next weekend we went back out and sat some more long hours. And we went into the bait one evening, and there was a bear on bait when we walked in, which was really eerie. I'm not used to just walking in, and there's bears everywhere. But so we got up in the tree stand, and he came back, and we were kind of looking at him like, oh, that might be the bear from the last time. And sure enough, it was. So I was getting excited then. And another bear, actually, I think there was 3 different bears on bait at the same time as him. And there was a brown bear that kept a sow. She kept chasing everybody away. So it was just waiting for the right opportunity, because she chased the bear I wanted away, I think at least 3 times.
Yeah,
So when he finally circled back, and I was like, oh, he's coming in this way. So I set up and I waited for him to walk in, and it was a beautiful broadside, one shot. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, it's there.
Yep.
So I made a really good shot, and he didn't go very far. So that was very emotional.
Yes, it is. But it sounds like it was earned success. You watched a lot of bears. You got to see the interaction. A lot of people think that, baiting bears is unfair an advantage, or it's not. They prejudge it. But when you get there, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah. See, and that's how I used to be too. I just judged it because I never ever tried it. So,
right.
And then I finally got to try it, and I was like, well, this is really okay. It's, it's different. really cool how you get to see the interactions and the different, personalities. And there's a lot going on usually. There's usually bears everywhere. And
yes, it could be an action-packed evening every day you're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're like, well, how are we getting out of here? And then you've got to figure that out too. So
yeah,
not just sitting in the tree stand waiting.
Well, it sounds like a great experience with your bow for a first harvest. And
Yeah.
you got to do it with your friend that you practice with and, work together to mentor each other, or is she more of a mentor to you?
I definitely mentor her. Like, she is just so inspiring. She definitely is more experienced in the bow hunting, and she's taken a lot of animals. So I look up to her for all her experience. I don't want to call her old, but, definitely experienced.
Right. Well, it's sure nice to have people like that. Where did you meet her?
Actually, we just met off Instagram. We just hit it off and decided that we should meet because she was living in Grand Prairie and I'm always in Grand Prairie. So, we met up and we did some axe throwing and we've been best friends ever since.
Nice. It's interesting when you express things on Instagram and other social platforms, you never realize what it can do to change your life. But finding friends like that, and finding a pivot point in your hunting styles and stuff like that has influenced yourself, your brother, and created new friendships. So it makes for pretty special events.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so refreshing, right? When you meet people that have the same hobbies and, they have different experiences and they can help you out with your hunting and your abilities. And like, they're willing to help you. Yes. Like it's just so nice to have that.
It's always easier than doing it yourself, and I encourage people to find like-minded people or take on a new adventure together, like archery, for instance, or shotguns or whatever it is. Find somebody that you like to spend time with and do it together because it's very rewarding and it's a lot easier to have someone to share the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. It's great to have somebody by your side when you do make that shot or, to celebrate the wins or talk about the hunt, like, go over things and see what they saw differently and, what you could do to improve because you always are learning. So,
yeah. Do you have any words of advice for other ladies that are maybe thinking about getting into hunting or trying archery? What would you tell them?
Oh, I would say try it. Find some people that you could learn from. Definitely go into a shop and get set up the proper way. There's lots of videos that you can learn from too. Like I know I've watched a lot of the knock-on videos.
Yeah. Well,
and
there's some great instruction online.
Yeah, absolutely. Use it as much as you need to, right? Like it's always there. And just find people that will help you. Like a lot of people will help you. You just need to ask.
Yeah, and that was my next question because it sounds like you haven't been shy about that. You've reached out and met people on social media, and you still ask questions, and people are friendly, helpful, and love to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they just have so much love for what they do that they're happy to help anybody. They just, they like to discuss it and go over it, and it's just part of their lifestyle. So
yeah,
it's nice that people will share that with others.
Yeah, well, that's how I met you too. I've been watching, Instagram and stuff, and saw your stuff coming up, and how you're going back out for your deer and sitting and gonna stick with the bow, and I remember some of the stuff further back about you shooting a moose, and you're a little bit competitive with your brother. I think you were teasing him that yours was bigger, but he thought his was bigger, and that's all part of the fun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to have some fun with it. I know my brother's was bigger, but mine was definitely nicer. So I got that going for me so far.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. One thing I do like to ask guests as we're wrapping up here is, do you have a favorite wild game meal that you do? A recipe or a meal? What's your favorite?
Oh my goodness. I think I cook with it so much that, just the burger alone and lasagna or just anything.
Yeah, that's what we eat as well. That's what's in our freezer. We eat wild game daily. That's, we make everything from our sandwich meats and our ground meat to roast steaks, stew meat, everything. So it's sometimes hard to pick a favorite, but when you understand how good it is for you and appreciate it, every meal becomes special.
Yeah, like there's nothing like a good elk steak on an open fire.
Oh yeah.
Like that's probably one of the favorites. Definitely, you just you put the spices on it and you throw her on the grill on the open flame, and
yeah,
that's
nothing like
definitely one of the favorites.
Yeah, that's probably an old hunting camp tradition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I hope we can meet each other someday in person, and I'd love to, if I'm traveling that way, I'll throw my bow in. Maybe we can send some arrows down range and tell some tall tales.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity for this. And hopefully one day we can actually meet.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing your story. I would say that you're going to be an inspiration to a lot of other ladies and men that are listening and have been thinking about hunting. Harvest Your Own is really geared towards people that are trying to gain more knowledge or try things for the first time. So your message is very important to inspire people. Thanks for coming out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.